All right, and we are live. Anyone has any questions? Now's the time to ask. If not, we are going to go with the questions that I already have posed to me from before. So the first question that we have here is, Rabbi, what is a mitzvah? So everyone hears it all the time. Do a mitzvah, do this, do that. It's a mitzvah. It's a good thing to do. But what really is a mitzvah? A good deed might be a mitzvah, true. But is that all it is? Is, helping someone who skinned their knee, lift them up from the floor. Is that a mitzvah? If yeah, then why? So, to get into what is a mitzvah, is a word used to describe something given by God to have us connect to Him. That is what a mitzvah is. So, because a mitzvah is specifically something given by God to have us connect to Him, we want to think about the type of things that God wants. So things that would even be counterintuitive would still be a mitzvah. Because mitzvah is, again, connecting to God, not just a good deed. Or, yes, a good deed, but not what most people would commonly refer to it as a good deed. So to give an example, if the Torah says that someone is supposed to get lashes, and you are appointed by Bezdin, not just going and doing it by yourself on the street, to give the guy lashes, you have done a mitzvah. You're hurting somebody. How can that be a mitzvah? The answer is because it connects you to God. How could it be that doing something negative, seemingly negative, will connect you to God? And the answer is most readily apparent when I give a mashal, a parable. You ask a rabbi a question, they love to throw in stories. So here's the parable I'm going to give. For those of you who are married or have a significant, your wife or husband asks you, my 30th birthday is coming up. It's a big deal, I know, but I really, really, really don't want a party. Don't want a lavish present. I just want to spend a quiet date with you. I want to go to a restaurant. I want to do something quiet, just me and you. Okay, got it. That's what they asked. That's what they want. Then you think to yourself, yeah, but you know what? It would be really nice if I got them a super expensive present and threw a massive surprise party they had no idea about. And of course, they come home on the night of their birthday expecting to go out with you on a nice, casual, quiet dinner between the two of you. And they come home and surprise, all the friends, 100 people around for this party. Not during coronavirus, but 100 people around for this party. You have all this fan, then you open up a box and you give them a fancy, lavish present. Do you think your spouse would be happy? The odds are they're going to be really upset. Why? You said, I want something small and quiet and intimate. And they decided to make something loud and big and brash. Now, usually people say, wow, you threw a party for 100 people. You got such a gorgeous gift. That's an amazing birthday. However, when someone says to you, that's not what they want, and then you do it, it's not a present. It's not going to connect you to them. Notice the word connect there. It's not a mitzvah. They don't appreciate it from you. So when you say, yeah, God said to do this, but I'm going to do what's in my heart, I'm going to do how I think I should connect to God. It's like the story with the husband and the wife, the spouse. If you go and you do the opposite of what they ask, something completely different, you're not connecting to them. You're not even doing something nice for them. You're doing something nice for yourself. And therefore, when we think about a mitzvah, a good deed, we have to think of it at the lens through, is this what God wants from us? Is this what will connect? And if the answer is yes, then it's a mitzvah. And mitzvahs are easy to do. You can find them anywhere. We have mitzvahs like la'ahavta l're'echa kamocha, to love your fellow as yourself. All you have to do is something nice for anybody. Anybody. And it's a mitzvah. You can do charity. You can do an act of goodness, kindness. You can deliver groceries to someone who's afraid to go outside. All of these things are beautiful, beautiful mitzvahs. But the reason of the mitzvah and what's important to remember is they're not a mitzvah because you feel like you're doing something good. It's a mitzvah because it connects you. And when it connects, in order to connect to someone, you have to connect in a fashion that they like. My wife is always telling me there's 5 love languages. And if you're speaking one I don't understand, who's it doing good for? Not me. So when we want to do a mitzvah, we should always keep in mind who and what we're trying to accomplish. My children have a book called Rehov Sumsum, which is Sesame Street in Hebrew. And the biggest, most giant mitzvah in the book of Rehov Sumsum is, anyone can guess, this Tikkun Olam. It's called fixing the world. Fixing the world is a beautiful thing. However, nowhere is it one of the 613 mitzvot, commandments, or things that connect us to God. Now, can fixing the world be a mitzvah? Sure, depending on the circumstance and the way that you enact it. But is it a mitzvah in and of itself? No, they've taken the word and they hijacked it. They used it for something else. While fixing the world is a beautiful thing, and it can be a mitzvah, you have to remember why. The why is important here. Now, that's not to say that if you do a mitzvah without a why, it is not valid. And the most common example given is charity. If you give money to a poor person so they can eat a meal, right? But you do it begrudgingly, the poor person doesn't care. At the end of the day, he's got food on his plate. So there are 3 levels, 3 different ways of doing a mitzvah. There's doing a mitzvah intentionally, but not wanting to do it. There's doing a mitzvah unintentionally. Obviously, you don't want to do it. Or then there is a way of doing a mitzvah intentionally and you want to do it. Obviously, the way of doing it intentionally and wanting to do it is the highest level. That doesn't take away from the other 2 ways. Doing a good deed for someone else still connects you to God, whether you want it or not. As we say about Jews, you're Jewish if you want to or not, there's nowhere to go. We're coming after you as Chabad rabbis, and we're going to try our best to connect you. So that is what a mitzvah is. That is what a mitzvah does. The next question in a similar vein is one of the common ones that people battle with all the time, which is, why do good things happen to bad people, or conversely, bad things happen to good people? And I will preface by saying, by no means do I hold the secret and the answer to everything. But there are a number of points to keep in mind. First and foremost is what we see as just a surface level. The famous story of Nachum Ish Gamzu, where he says, this is also for the best. Or the other stories of things being for the best. You know, there's the famous story of our sages, that one sage was traveling along the way, and he brought with him only 3 things. Simple man. He brought forth his donkey. He had to carry him. He brought a rooster to wake him up in the morning so he could do his morning prayers early, and a candle so that he could study late at night. He also brought books with him. And he was traveling on his way. He had an important mission. He had to travel from one side of the country to the other. I don't recall what the mission was at the time, but he was doing something. And on the way, he stops at a village, a Jewish village, and he wants to stay the night. And he goes and he knocks on the door, and people say, you're not welcome here. Can't stay here. He goes from door to door to door, and no one wants to let him stay. Seemingly a very negative occurrence. But you know what he does? It's fine. He goes, he sets up camp up in the mountains. He's there in his camp, and then a lion comes and eats his donkey. He says, okay, it seems like a bad thing. He just lost his donkey. Donkey's like your car. Imagine your car getting vandalized in the middle of the night. It's a big deal. Seems like a pretty terrible thing. And he continues on, and a cat comes and eats his chicken. Yeah, well, now he doesn't have an alarm clock either. Seemingly a very negative thing. And finally, a wind comes and blows out his candle. He says, listen, God, all I wanted to do was to study for you. All I wanted to do was do this holy mission. All I wanted to do was be able to wake up in the morning for my prayers, and yet you took this all away from me. Seemingly very negative, very, very poor. Yet we know how the story ends. He wakes up in the morning, and he looks down, and the village had been raided at night by bandits. And if he was staying in the house, who knows what would have happened? Bandits aren't known for their kindness and gentle spirit. If his donkey was around and it brayed when it smelled the other horses or heard the noises, that could have alerted them. The rooster crowing also may have, and a light, of course, would have drawn them to it. So we see seemingly something very, very negative, and yet in the end, it actually worked out for his benefit. And not always do we see it as clearly and as soon as the next morning when we wake up. Sometimes the bad seems to be lasting, and there's really no way to tell why it's there. But if you have some amunah, bitachon, and the Eilfort and God, you know that things he does in this world are for the best. Very hard to understand, and some things there's no way I can explain. But that doesn't mean that they're not for the best. God has a reason for doing them. So do bad things happen to good people? Depends whose looking glass you're looking through. Another example, another answer given is more of a answer through the Chassidic lens, through the eyes of Chassidic philosophy, which is, in this world, we have a soul, and a soul is like a garment. And when it comes out, when you're born, it's a beautiful white garment. And as you go through your life and you go through the world, every time you sin or do something wrong, not necessarily a sin, you can do something wrong that's not necessarily a sin, it dirties the garment a little bit. Just a little bit. And eventually the stains build up. So how do you get the stains out? Well, if anyone owns any white shirts, you throw them in a washing machine. You pour in soap, which is, very, I guess the word is not abrasive, but it's deeply penetrating. I'm sure it's not comfortable for the cloth to pull out any stains. You put hot water, it beats it back and forth. Then it goes into a dryer where hot air steams it and rolls it and tumbles it, and finally it's hung out to dry. If it's a shirt, then you got to iron it. And at the end of the day, you have another beautiful shirt. Your shirt's as beautiful as it started. But that's not a pleasant process, especially not for the shirt. So, side note, sidebar, if anyone wants to post a question in the sidebar, as soon as I finish with this one, I will get to your question and we'll continue on with it. And I would appreciate if you post it now, so that way I can stop this topic and move on to the next one as soon as I'm done, instead of having the awkward pause where I go, So going back to what I was saying about good things happening to bad people or bad things happening to good people. Your world, in your life in the world, you build up a credit or a debit, as the case may be. And sooner or later, the accounting will come full. In fact, it is one of the 13 principles of faith. We say there's a God in this world who records and pays those who need to be paid either way. And therefore, as you live your life and you build up your credit, you build up your debit, you move forward with it, and sooner or later the accounts will come due. The question is, do the accounts come due in this world right now, or they come due in the world to come? If anyone is familiar with the story of Job, with the story of Eilfort, Eilfort lived his life as a very righteous man. And it says the angel of death, or the Satan, came to God and said, it's easy for Job to be a good man. He's got all these good things going for him. He's got a good family, he's wealthy, he's healthy. It's easy for him to be a good man. But I bet you if things weren't so nice, Job wouldn't be such a righteous person. And it says God sent Job test after test after test after test after test. And if you read through it, it's a very short parak in Tanakh, but in the Nevi'im and Ksuvim. Hi, Hector. If you read through it, it sounds pretty terrible. It says the suffering of Eve's life, all 70 years of suffering in Eve's life, wouldn't amount to one moment in Gehenna, in purgatory, hell, where your soul is being cleaned. So the suffering, the unpleasantness of the world to come when you're being cleaned can't be overstated. So therefore, God sometimes sends bad things to good people so that their slate is wiped clean in this world as opposed to the world to come. And conversely, bad people still do good things. If you look at Esav, one of the most wicked people in the 5 books of the Torah, Esav is probably right up there as one of the most nasty evildoers we know of as a Jewish people. It says Esav excelled at honoring his father. Excelled. Even the most wicked of people have good in them, and they do good. And so sometimes their good is paid back in this world as opposed to the world to come. There's a story in the Talmud of a sage who was very, very desperately poor. He was just extremely impoverished. It said about him his luck was so bad that if he started making coffins, no one would die. That's how terrible his luck was. He couldn't catch a break when it came to business. And one year, as I think the holiday of Pesach was rolling around, I believe the story was, all the wagemen were gathering their wages, which means whatever job people were working at, it was time to collect before the end of the harvest, Pesach, and going home to spend the holiday with their families. And his wife was looking around and she saw this and she said, it's not right. You work hard, you serve God, you should go to God and demand your wages. God, if I'm working hard, I'm working for you, I deserve to be paid. And she nagged and she pushed and she said, let's go. It's not right for the kids. It's not right for me. You don't want to do it for yourself? Fine, but do it for me. Finally, he agreed. And he went to a cave and he prayed, please, God. Just like any wage worker, you say, don't withhold the wages from them as one of your mitzvahs. So too for me, don't withhold your wages from me. It says, reaching out from the wall of the cave he was in, came out a hand and dropped a solid gold table leg with encrusted in gems. And he brought it to his wife, and they were overjoyed. And they were sitting together, and they looked at each other and said, wait, this needed to come from somewhere. It's our wage. Imagine what's going to happen after 120 years when we pass away. We go up to heaven, and all our other friends who are sages and their families are going to be sitting around their beautiful tables, learning Torah up in heaven. They're going to come over to our house, they come over to our table, our dining room, and our table's only going to have 3 legs. Imagine how embarrassed we're going to be. Beautiful gold table, jeweled legs, and ours only have 3 legs. He said, oh my, you're right. Go ask your teacher what we should do. So he went to his teacher. He spoke to him. His teacher said, don't worry, I assure you, you won't have any shortfalling in the world to come. If God granted you a miracle and gave you something in this world, be happy and take it. Still he worried. Still he asked his teacher, and he said, you know what? If there's any deficit, I'll fill it in from my own portion of the world to come. Don't worry. And yet, he really couldn't have a menuchas nefesh, peace of the soul. He was worried. And so after speaking to his wife, he said he decided he's praying, the leg should go back, the table leg should be returned to God. He said he went back into a cave, and he prayed and prayed and prayed, and the hand came out, reached out, grabbed the table leg and pulled it away. And our sages say is that it's actually a bigger miracle that God took back than he gave, because gifts from heaven we see, but to rescind a gift is very rare to see. Ask, well, hold on. He's a good person. Why are bad things happening to him? And the answer is simply speaking, because this is how he would prefer his credit dealt with. And the third part I would like to say is that you don't know how people are in private. Yes, you might look at someone and say, well, that's terrible miser. Why did God bless him with charity? If I would be wealthy, I would give out open-handed charity. There's hundreds and hundreds of stories about this, but one particular one I want to mention was a town in Russia, and like most towns, they had their whole range of people. One person there was fabulously wealthy, one of the Jews, and he was known to be a terrible, terrible, terrible miser. He wouldn't give not one red cent, as you say, to any sort of cause. He just wouldn't do it. And people stopped even asking him at a certain point. It wasn't worth it. Slammed the door in your face. There was no way you were getting money out of this guy. And after many, many years, he passed away. And, they held the funeral and no one wanted to come. Why should we come? Honor the miser over there. They buried him all the way on the outskirts of the plots of land that were given to the community, because he didn't even buy a Jewish burial plot. They buried him all the way on the outskirts. The rabbi had to beg and plead to get a minyan there for the burial, and that was it. That's all that came to honor him. They closed up his affairs, and they went on with their life. A week later, the rabbi gets a knock on his door. A poor person comes, says, "No, Rabbi, I need some charity." No problem, the city has a fund for this. They give the poor person charity. For too long, another knock, and another knock, and another knock. Within a couple of weeks, the rabbi doesn't know what's going on. He's inundated with requests for charity, for tzedakah, for help. Have the blue. Where did this come from? So he decides this is not a simple matter anymore. He's going to his teacher. You'll notice that when rabbis don't know the answer to the question, we just go and ask the next rabbi up the rung from us and keep the questions passed upwards, pass the buck, as it were, pass the question. So they went and he asked his teacher, what's going on? His teacher said, well, let's go and look through this, through the affairs, through his boxes. They had shut up his mansion, closed it up, and I guess whoever was his yarshim, whoever was inheritors, got his wealth, but his boxes were closed up. He wasn't close to people. So they went in and started going through his boxes, and they found a notebook. And in the notebook, they see names, dates, and numbers. Before too long, they realized that this miser was secretly going and dropping charity on everyone's houses who needed. Every time he heard of a request or listened to a request, he made sure it was fulfilled. He just didn't take not one shred of credit for it. And now that he passed away, it finally came to light all the good he was doing. The point of the story is, sometimes you see someone who seems like a terrible person. He seems cheap, he seems miserly, yet you see he's wealthy. Why? And the answer is, that's what you see. That doesn't mean that's what the actual truth is. And so sometimes you see good things happen to bad people, but they're not actually bad people. They're actually beautiful, good people, and you just don't see the light in them. And it's a question of the lens that you are looking through. So those are three answers why either good things happen to bad people or bad things happen to good people. Now, it doesn't answer all situations. And unfortunately, there is no one-size-fits-all answer. And there are many things simply that I cannot answer. I just don't know. But it is not as always as black and white as many people think. If anyone else has any questions, please feel free to post them in the comment bar. If not, we are going to end the session in another minute. Just quick for a minute, we're going to talk about various different services and things that you can get right now. I know a lot of people are stuck at home. A lot of times people are looking for things to do with their families. And Chabad La Costa has worked very hard on putting together the Jewish Virtual Academy, where we have lots and lots of classes every day of the week. And there is a schedule posted on the Chabad La Costa webpage. We can see all sorts of amazing classes and things that we are offering on a regular basis. There is also a webpage with all the Chabad of San Diego, which I think is called Chabad SD4U. And it has a whole list of various services and things that we have to help you with. But if you need anything at all, be it Seder meal or help with groceries or chicken soup on Friday, please reach out to us, contact us, and we will be more than happy to help. If you have any questions or any classes that you would specifically like to hear from, let us know. We'll put something together and we'll let you see it. Also, all the classes that have been recorded or given are recorded and put on our YouTube channel, and you are free to and encouraged to browse the selection. There's a lot of interesting topics. We try to keep the classes short so that you can listen to them in bite-sized pieces. So I guess that wraps us up for today, as I don't see any new questions. Have a great day, everyone. And for next week, again, if you have any questions, please post them here or on my Facebook page, or send me an email if you want to do it privately, or PM me. And I will do my best to answer your question on the next installment of Ask the Rabbi. All right, everyone, be well and have a kosher and freilich Pesach. Bye-bye.